Tan. I'm a playwright and performer, and today, incidentally, I happen to be moderating this forum on Singapore food and it's our relationship with it as a nation. So let me give some opening remarks. Foodophilia is a new program curated by the Arts House, which seeks to explore questions of food through the arts. And this year's Foodophilia will focus on the relationship between food and our national identity. So I guess it's interesting that just down the road, the fact that you're here means you're not there, is Pink Dot, right? Which is, I don't know how many of you know about Pink Dot, but it's an event in support of the LGBT community here. And I think it's interesting that we are here today because both events are asking bigger questions about who we want to be as a nation, as Singaporeans, except that they're asking these questions in very different ways. Pink Dot is articulating those questions in terms of love, in terms of the right to love. But here, this evening, we're going to be talking about who we want to be as a nation in terms of the food that we eat. Elemental, simple things like that. But it's going to be an interesting discussion because we have lined up today a very illustrious, in their own ways, very celebrated panelists. Over here next to me is Dr. Leslie Tay. He's best known for his food blog, I Eat, I Shoot, I Post.sg, which has, over the years, lovingly documented and reviewed hawker food. Dr. Leslie Tay has also delivered talks both locally and abroad on Singapore hawker cuisine. Next to him is Mr. Sinma Dashao, an early advocate for culinary education, and he today continues his work at the National Heritage Board with an ambitious project to preserve Singapore's rich street food culture. And I think he'll tell us a little bit more about his upcoming book project, which documents over 100 hawker centres and hawkers in Singapore. Okay. And right at the end over there is Mr. Gauze Lee, founder of Plus 65, which incidentally is our international calling code, a pioneering Southeast Asian supper club in London. And he has written a book due this September of recipes of Singapore food, and as he tells us, other recipes inter alia from Plus 65. So now we've met the panelists, I just want to get a sense of who is in the audience today. So if I could just pick a few of you to tell us a little bit about yourselves, just so we know who we are pitching our opinions at. All right. Okay, so let's just start off today's panel discussion with a very fun, simple set of questions. So maybe I'll just go down the line, so I focus. Maybe we talk about what is your favorite food. It doesn't have to be Singapore food, although I guess you could include a few of those as well. Yeah.
My favorite food would be kueh pie teh, because it's not it was fairly difficult to make, but it's something which we always serve at the supper club, at my supper club, because it's an easy opener to a Western palate, because it's a small canapé, which is known in the Western world, and it's also it's very bright, colourful, and it's very tasty. But when people find out how much work actually goes into it to make the stock, to make each individual shell, people really then can appreciate how much effort goes into it. So that's my favorite food.
My favorite food depends on my mood. But one thing I can't get away, I think it's kind of related, it's popiah. But I liked it, the really raw sense. You don't cut it, you wrap it, the very Hokkien style. You wrap it and you just eat it like that. And with the juice, everything, and that's to me is perfect.
Dr. Leslie, Hokkien mee satay. We've been asked this question so many times because
I'm sorry. Do you want to give a different answer?
No. Hokkien mee and satay, because I grew up eating Hokkien mee satay, the coffee shop right in front, opposite my house. 3 boys in the family, so always my father buy not enough, and always have to fight over it. So always to me, it's childhood memories. And it seems to pair very well with satay. Always Hokkien mee, not enough meat, so they have the satay and pair with Hokkien mee. 2 combination. There are certain hawker foods that combine very well together, right? Like prawn noodles and ngoh hiang seems to be paired very well together. So for me, Hokkien mee and satay is a perfect combination.
Okay. Right. So that's a series of questions to whet everybody's appetite. Okay, so the theme for today's panel discussion is hawkers, right? Hawker food, its relationship to our national identity, our culture, and I think the one problem that is being posed is, whether or not hawker food will continue to survive for our children, our children's children, our children's children, to experience in the same way we have. I think, as it is, a lot of people already think that the way we experience hawker food today is quite different from the way it was experienced by our parents' generations, etc., etc. So, I guess I'll start with a kind of broad question for Leslie then. Why has it become important to talk about hawker food?
I think because of it's just basically the demographics, because the generation of hawkers that are now in the 50s and 60s, when Singapore chased all the hawkers off the streets in the late 60s and early 70s, these bunch of hawkers are now at the end of their sort of work cycle. So a lot of them are in the 50s and 60s now. A lot of them are hanging up their ladles, their woks. And it's a problem of our own success, because Singapore got so, we developed so quickly. We do very well. Our kids all go to good schools. Even the hawkers, their kids go to university and all this. And we can't really expect the kids to want to do that kind of work. I mean, as a society, we should be happy that one generation works hard, the next generation will be able to prosper and do better than the previous generation. So therein lies the problem. The problem is, our society has grown more affluent, the kids are more educated, and nobody wants to take over from these group of hawkers who are going to retire. And I think people are starting to realize, okay, so what we're going to do now with all these foods that all of us, identify when we go overseas, right? And we ask, what's the first thing you miss? You always say laksa, the bak chor mee, that place, that Hokkien. That's the thing we miss. We don't miss, among other things, we don't mention it, but food is a huge part of our national identity. And I think that's where the concern is now. Everybody knows, suddenly start to know. And I'm very happy that a lot of young people, Generation Y, are starting to realize that, hey, there's something there that we shouldn't let go of. And so we are seeing a lot of the Generation Y, the university people, always writing to me, asking me, we want to do a project. Our final year project is in hawker food and blah, blah, blah. And then they come up with all sort of websites to try to preserve, the hawker heritage. In a sense, they're trying to get their friends to do it, because they themselves won't go and char kway teow, you see. And you attend university, then you're trying to get somebody else to do it, same generation, so it's very difficult. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sinma, what do you think is at stake there? I mean, taking off from what Leslie said, what's at stake if hawker food were to die a slow, painful, and regrettable death?
I was just talking to Ross that, I cannot imagine in 3 to 5 years' time, my favorite prawn noodle, my favorite popiah is not going to be around, my favorite char kway teow is not going to be around. That day is going to be very, very sad for me. Like even right now, when I visit some of these stores, I just want to take a look at the uncle. Oh, he's healthy, he's working his walk. At least I feel, okay, he's still healthy and everything is well. And I'm happy. Even if I don't eat, I know a lot of his regulars would be happy as well. So I think there is a whole entire generation of us. I mean, I'm born in the 70s, so right now I'm late 30s, 40s. So I believe a lot in my group. We grew up in that generation where Singapore is starting off. We move into new towns. We don't live in the towns that we grew up in anymore. I used to grow up in Toa Payoh. After a while, like what Dr. Leslie was saying, prosperity, affluence. We move up to a nicer town, new town with better facilities, nice flats, But right now at our age, suddenly a lot of these things we realize that, especially those of us who live overseas, gone overseas, we come back and we realize, where is that store? Where is that uncle? Where is that? It's another person took over the store. So I guess, moving forward, if you think like this 5-10 years ahead, a lot of things is going to change, and a lot of it is inevitable. Our nations need to progress. There needs to be, we need to advance in the name of advancement or for economy's sake and stuff like that. But hopefully, hopefully we can really sit down and think about how we can preserve the trade, preserve the craft. I think for us, for me and my team who has been doing this documentation of heritage hawker, I think the real concern is really keeping the craft alive. Good tailors are very hard to come by nowadays. We don't even have good shoemakers. A Malaysian who can make very good shoes, he went to London, he became famous, Jimmy Choo. Everybody loves, go crazy about his shoe. Ladies, all of us celebrities, Hollywood, millionaire, whatever. One craft, do it well. That's how I feel about our craft, which is hawker food. I'm talking about now in relation to hawker food. If we can preserve this craft, either making noodles, either making bread, making yu cha kueh, dough work, whatever, we preserve that craft and and it's something we should be very proud of. If we can bring our kids, our grandkids, hey, you see, this is where Akong used to eat. This is where Papa used to eat. We used to eat the same thing, and Uncle is still around. At least the craft survived, and future generations get to enjoy it. And I mean, come on, visitors coming to Singapore, they will want to try stuff like that. It makes sense. Wow, hey, Singapore, we can only find this here. I want to try this. I mean, all of us, my full-time job, I work for the Japanese. We know people fly to Japan to eat sushi, to go there to experience certain things that cannot be replicated anywhere else in the world. Yes, we can find sushi here, you can find sushi in every major city of the world. But people still want to go back there, right to Tsukiji Market, where all the action are happening, just to experience that feel, to be in there, eat Japanese food, experience the culture. I used to tell a lot of the people that we work with, culture, history, heritage cannot be replicated. You can replicate open food court, people can copy, do it in Thailand, do it here, do it there, but culture cannot. And this is what we have, and I feel a very strong, very compelling for me to preserve this and the craftsmanship of our hawker food.
You look like you have a response to that.
No. Okay, before I start ranting, I love hawker food. Like, I really, truly love hawker food. I love our hawker culture. But I think as with all cultures have to evolve over time. And the hawker culture being one that has to evolve. If it doesn't, I'm afraid that it will become like an irrelevant museum relic. So you spoke about like your favorite char kway teow and your favorite dishes that you used to eat. So when we talk about preserving hawkers, what are we actually trying to preserve? I think that's something you think about, because if you're trying to preserve taste, right? Taste and flavors by definition cannot be preserved. So whilst you might really like, take a recent example. People on Facebook lamenting about the death of the Pasir Panjang braised duck, right? You're like, oh my goodness, it's going to close down, going to queue up by 20 ducks a day. And I've had it, I was like, okay, it's alright, but I mean, I won't queue up for it, and so what are we preserving? Is it taste? Because your taste differs from my taste. Our taste differs from our parents' taste. Our parents' taste differs from their parents' taste. And the reason is because our lifestyles have changed. So our sedentary, not everyone's sedentary. I think it's fair to say a large proportion of humans in Singapore now lead a fairly more sedentary office air-conditioned lifestyle than 50 years ago. So obviously our taste buds have to change as well, because we are used to the eating salads, soups, sandwiches for lunch. There's no way that we could survive on a diet of lard, char kway teow, or lunch like our parents did.
Obviously, you lived in London too long.
No, I worked in Singapore.
So I can't live on salad and
you'd be surprised if you walk around Raffles Place how many soup spoons you have, how many sandwich shops you have.
These are very deadly Sorry.
Yeah, so I think I'm just trying to, what are we trying to preserve basically is I mean, if you're going to preserve recipes, then I think that is, yeah, I think we should preserve recipes, we should document stories, because like Sima was telling me earlier about stories about hawkers that he met. Those, yeah, and what Leslie's doing with his, with the books that he's written, these are important, I feel, in terms of documentation. But as the whole concept of hawkers dying a slow, painful, horrible death, I don't know, I just can't see it. I just can't see, like 10 years from now, everyone going to like Whampoa Market and eating steak sandwiches for lunch. I just can't see that happening. I don't know, maybe I'm being I don't know statistics, I don't know what, maybe I'm being naive as well, but I don't know. I just can't see that happening. And just digressing slightly, talking about the evolution, because one of the press blurbs talked about, I think someone mentioned wonton ramen, and they were like, oh, why we, you know, and there was this whole newspaper talk about it. A lot of people on the internet was like, oh, what's this wonton ramen thing? You know, it's not Singaporean. But I was like, just let it be, lah. Just let things evolve naturally. Change is inevitable, but it's not necessarily bad. Like if we didn't embrace change, then we won't have chicken chop. Chicken chop, despite being a Western food store, it's not Western at all because chickens don't have chops. It's a purely Asian invention. And if the first Hainanese guy came to the hawker center to fly a grant and said, I want to fry fish and chips, and we said no, we must cook them in Singaporean, then we would never have like, you know, all these chicken chops, Western food. We would have Chinese pork belly satay. So change is inevitable, but it might not be bad. My point.
Okay, we'll bookmark this slightly controversial point for later. Who knew we could get so upset about food? So I just want to ask a more general question, and it's open to anybody, the three of you. And I suppose the audience can think about it too, because if we will open the floor for discussion later. What is special about Singapore hawker food compared to cuisines from around the world? A related question is there really a kind of genre of cookery recognized as Singapore food in the same way Vietnamese or Thai or other traditions are recognized? So, I thought it'd be interesting to define this idea of Singapore food before we talk at length about preserving it. So what exactly, as God says, are we preserving? Is it taste or a series of recipes? Is it a tradition? Are there specific flavor profiles?
Sure, you can't divorce Singapore food from Malaysia because Malaya as a whole, the two countries are so close for many years. But if you look at Singapore food and compare it with, say, Vietnamese or Cambodian food, definitely there's anybody can see there's a huge difference, even with Indonesian food. So the cooking styles of Singapore food, of course, comes from China, from India, from Malaysia, and a mix of the three, plus the British culture. And these four cultures, by and large, make up the kind of techniques, the kind of ingredients that make up Singapore food. But the fact of the matter is, you know, a very simple way to define Singapore food, right? Laksa, Hokkien Mee, Char Kway Teow. You all know it, I know it. We all know when we talk about Singapore food, you know what we're talking about, right? And you can't mistake it from, say, Japanese food. Very different kind of cooking methods, very different kind of ingredients. And I think it's so much a part of our identity. It's so much a part of our makeup that we can't divorce the food from our culture. It's so intimately intertwined. Yes, we are going to experience some evolution, but I will put forth to you that the evolution and what we are trying to keep is that identity. Laksa is that identity. The curry laksa that we have here is very typical. The katong laksa, the way it's supposed to be tasted. It may alter a little bit, but by and large, laksa is going to be like this. It can be better. Like last year when we did our Ultimate Hawker Fest in October, and we're going to have another one this year where we get all these hawkers, and my idea is always, these hawkers are not being moved along with the times, because now in Singapore you have all this wonderful Wagyu beef and all the ingredients coming from all over the world. Why is it the hawkers are being left behind? Why are only the chefs using it? So we got Wagyu beef, gave it to Hock Lam beef noodle, and then say, why not you create for us a bowl of Wagyu beef that sells for the same price as a ramen, $20, you know, use Wagyu beef. And when people came and eat it, they say, wow, this is really good, you know. These beef noodles, you know, but it's just brought up to the next level. So if you're talking about evolution, right, I see that as the kind of evolution that we need to move forward in terms of our food culture. Just like how the Japanese, when they started with sushi, it was street food. It was just basically a working man's food. You get 4 pieces of sushi, some fish on top, lots of rice, and then it fills up your tummy in the good old days. And then after that, subsequently evolved. And the funny way it evolved is right after the war, there was not enough rice, so they had to ration the rice. So the rice got smaller, the fish got bigger, and then they keep working at it. And now you have like very high-end sushi, which you can eat in Japan, and also very ordinary, normal sushi, right? So with our hawker food, I see the same kind of trend, hoping that there will be, there will always be very cheap food, because there are some segments of our society that depend on the $2 chicken rice or $2.50, and they really need that for sustenance. But on the other hand, we also need to give these better hawkers a chance to move forward and differentiate. So last year, for instance, we had Ken chicken rice, which are one of the best in Singapore. Then we go and get good chicken for them. I went to Johor and go and get them to grow this very special chicken in the mall, where they can exercise a little bit more, and then feed them with corn, because that's my idea, is how to move forward with chicken rice and make you guys willing to pay $15 for a plate. Because it's good chicken. I mean, if you use Wagyu beef to make a beef noodle, you should, as Singaporeans, we should be proud to say, okay, then it's the same level as a ramen, right? It's also very incredulous to me that one ramen store in a hawker center, this guy selling, okay, they don't say ramen, this guy selling pasta. Next to him is a mipota, or Hokkien. Okay, so pasta and Hokkien. Both are noodles with a soup stock. One is fried, the other one is. So if you can sell pasta for $7, everybody you pay $7 for pasta, $6, right? But if the next door guy tried to sell you a plate of Hokkien mee for $7, you wouldn't pay for it, right? So what is the young person going to do? If he's going to say, okay, I got this hawker store, I either sell pasta or I sell Hokkien mee, because he's going to sell pasta. Is it just because I call it pasta, I sell it for $7? And then the guy who's selling Hokkien mee can only make $3, because if he sells it for $5, you start to make noise. So in order to preserve our culture, we really need to change our mindset. And Singaporeans need to be able to discern and differentiate. When the hawker is putting in all the effort, using better ingredients, then we should be able to say, okay, now you're at a different level and we reward you for what you're doing. Like if you go to your supper club, of course, you're not going to pay $3 for your laksa, right? If you're going to open a supper club in Singapore, right? Because if you use all the good ingredients, you sell one bowl for $10. And people will recognize it, you say, wow, cooked by lawyer. Wow.
So I guess that's a question I'd like to pose to everybody. Maybe goes specifically. Goes, Italy specifically. Does the character of hawker food, can you even call it hawker food if you were to bring it up to restaurant standard, for example? I mean, what is lost or gained in the process of gourmetifying hawker food, as it were?
Ambience, I guess, is the first thing, isn't it? You lose that hawker ambience. I think the whole concept of a hawker, this also ties back to your previous point of what Singaporean food is that I feel you can get a lot of different kinds of food in one space, like a hawker center. And you can't get this in other countries. You can't get this in Thailand. Thailand, you just go and get Thai food. In the hawker center, you can get a myriad of food. You can get your Malay, you get Indian, you get Chinese in one compound. So what you think, so the question is, what is lost if we atasfy hawker food? So I think you lose that ambience, and
The ambience is the main.
The feel of the whole dish, the whole messiness of the plate, the way it's slopped on instead of prettily with tweezers, with microgreens.
And Sima, having like lovingly documented like 100 over hawker centers for your book, right? Do you think that's something that will be? I mean, if Singapore food, right, as a genre, evolves in the way Dr. Leslie's talked about it, do you think losing this ambiance, like the hawkerness of the hawker food, is that something we should be sad, ambivalent about?
I think as Singaporeans, we need to think about the role hawker centers play in all our lives, all walks of our life. May it be. It is honestly more than an institution, and it deserves some form of recognition. Either from top down, meaning government side, or grassroots level. That means us, the people, come appreciating and really taking this as part of our own culture that we can be very proud of. Everywhere you go, every city that you go, you have, you just talk about your hawker center food, talk about the place where you eat, which is hawker center. And honestly, if you think about it, right, hawker center is very uniquely Singapore. Very unique. There are a lot of street food all over the world, but hawker center in this kind of a nice environment, hygiene-wise, you don't worry about rain, 30, 40 years ago, they worry about rain. If there's rain, there's really no business. But hawker center setting in an NEA, managed by NEA, the hygiene, the comfort, I mean, it's relatively okay. You're not sitting by the roadside where big trucks walk past and your food is, going to be, dusty and stuff like that. And it's very uniquely Singapore. Visitors who come to Singapore, first thing, we heard about hawker center. We want to visit hawker center. A lot of people are like that, and it plays it has significance in our cultural makeup and how we see our food, our identity. And leading back to your question, if to lose this, I think definitely it's very sad. Okay? Because for us, coming back to the project we do, to do this project for 3 years.
You better tell them about the project.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for the reminder. Okay, in 2010, 3 of us, 3 local lads, we thought we should do something to document Singapore hawker heritage. We felt that a lot of them are, who have passed on, not around, kids on, take over, store gone. And we approached Heritage Board. We say that, do you guys have actually a document, archive of some of these people who have been around? At least, for us Singaporeans, one generation, we could go back, flip through, oh yeah, I remember eating here, I was dining here, right by this street, that street. So Heritage Board said they don't have anything like that, any document of that sort. So 3 of us were commissioned to do something like that. Very ambitious, 110 hawker centers under NEA. So if you take 110 hawker centers, if you go 1 per week, that's already 2 years. Given no PH, no public holiday, no break, you don't have a job of your own. This becomes really your life. Take 2 years, full years, 52 weeks in a year. It took about 2.5 years. So we went around interviewing hawker centers. The thing is, I'm not talking about taste of food. I'm talking about history, culture. I don't go and review their food. I talk about uncle, auntie, how long have you been around? Tell us a story. How did you start? Which street? Is that street still around? Is that field where you used to do your business, where those inspectors come and chase you around and stuff like that? Is that still around? Do you remember those days? How were those days? Tell us. We document everything. So we documented, and we have about to date 300 to be exact. I think 303 hawkers that we considered heritage hawkers. These people have been around at least for 40 years, one generation. At least they have served one generation of Singaporeans. You can't run away from that one generation, one entire generation. A lot of them, of course, more than that. And of course, I'll just put this in as well. Next year is our 50th year, nation building, Jubilee year. So this is going to be a very good time for us to reflect, on our part, being Singaporean, our identity, what goes into our nation building, who are we, our food, our culture. And And so we did that for 2.5 years. Our book will be launched next month. It covers all the 300 odd of them.
What's it called?
The book title, Not For Sale.
The
Three
book
words.
title is not for sale.
Not for sale. The title of the book, 3 words, not for sale. Yeah, I mean, I let you guys derive the interpretation, not for sale. What is not for sale? You know, we have a lot of progress, we have a lot of advancement, but we hope some things should never be put up for sale. This is our culture. And I met a lot of people, you know, we have met, you know, library board, different agency. And to do this project, we're very open. You need to be a romantic. Seriously. Because we are talking about hawker center. It's hot, sweaty, and sometimes the hawker are not very friendly one, okay? Uncle! All the words are coming out. What do you want? What do you want? What's this? Don't waste my time. But seriously, at one point, I mean, of course, you know, we are very grateful, thank God that, you know, 90% are very friendly to us. After a while, some take a bit of warming up, but 90% are very open to us, to share with us their stories. We have old grandmothers, Apo, Akong, came down on walking stick just to meet us, to tell us their stories. We have people who come, sit down, talk to us until their eyes are watery. Because we have people who went through really hard time. We have grandmothers, they are in their 80s, still in business, 80 years old, still in business. Affected because she will tell you she was widowed when she was in her early 20s. And you have 3-4 kids. You have no education. Singapore is not as if it is right now. You have 3 kids looking up to you for food to feed. You have 3 mouths to feed. What can you do as a woman in that era? The only thing she did, use her hands, make kueh, make pastry, 1 piece 5 cents. Raised her 3 kids. Today, some are doctors, some are lawyers, some are successful engineers. These are Singapore stories. These are very precious Singapore stories. And we should keep this, document this, like what God has said, pass this to the next generation. When you know, I go a little bit off topic a little bit because I feel this is important. A lot of times we hear people say, you know, criticize our young generation. Oh, they can't take hardship. You know, the Chinese, they have a certain phrase say that they're strawberry generation because they're very soft, you know, they can't take hardship. I tell you honestly, when I meet all these people, it's totally not true. Singaporeans are very hardworking, very diligent, and absolutely resilient. When I saw how this Apo, in the face of hardship, she don't give up. And there's this particular Apo, grandmother, she said, you know, she had no choice, same thing, she was widowed, she has no choice, she had kids to raise. Only thing she could do, she tried many jobs, but it didn't work out. The only thing she thought of, sell food. But she don't know, there's no school to go to. You don't go to a cooking school. You just learn and that's it, you know, just try and that's it. She did, and she was, of course, just like any other single parent, she had a lot of worries. You worry about your kids, you worry about money, you worry about a lot of things, education. She worried about whether people will accept the food. But the good thing was, sell very well. She was very happy. After a while, she realized she's actually not making money. Because why? She don't know how to run the business. She was actually giving away free food. She said she will run to one corner of the street and cry. You can imagine when the kids heard her story, and now of course they're successful businessmen, whatever. It's very different when you have gone through that. You have seen your own mother gone through that. You know, the hardship she's gone through to raise you, and she put the effort she put in to help build our nation. You know, I mean, in her little way, you know, contributing to our food culture and stuff like that. So these, I feel, are very precious stories, and these are values, very important values that could be passed on to the next generation.
Sure, okay, thanks for that. But to go back to an earlier word which goes with, no, it's okay, it was a great story. The word museum, right? The way you describe it, a lot of hawker food seems to have come out of these stories of adversity, right? And I think to some extent we should be grateful, and I think many of us are that. To a large extent, people don't really, not to a large extent, most Singaporeans don't have to go through these biographies anymore, right? So we progressed, we become a metropolitan urban city. And the way, do you think then that in the next stage of Singapore, the evolution of Singapore food culture, hawker centres are, in fact, not essential to that. They are, as you say, heritage, a part of our heritage. They are essentially museum pieces. Because if food culture is to be taken on by, is to be developed and pushed to its next stages by a new generation, I mean, the new generation isn't going to work in kopitiam, right? Like the unglamness of a hawker center isn't the kind of place where someone of my generation would immediately think of setting up shop. So do you think amongst the two of yourselves that, and maybe something the audience can think about as well, the hawker center as an institution, as the cradle or the museum of Singapore food culture is an old-fashioned idea, or soon to be an old-fashioned idea?
I think that's a reality, a very sad reality, a challenge that we all have to have a conversation over. What we can do, can preserve this. I think it has come from many angles. It's about the pricing, the money, basically put it down to it, money. I think I come from a more I don't think about the hardware, I think about the hardware, our heart. I think more of how the pride we have in our food, our culture, and the need to preserve it, keep it going, and that's where I come from personally. So
Our generation is still okay. My kids' generation is different. Actually, every time we go and eat,
is that okay? I don't know statistics scientifically, but is that true that
my kids every time we go out for lunch, especially lunch because it's very hot. First question: hot or cold place? Got aircon or no aircon?
It's true.
And the temperature, I mean, in Singapore is rising. It's risen by at least 2 degrees, right? So my argument with NEA, whenever they ask me about it, I always tell them, look, you need to air condition your hawker centers. It's simple as that. Because if you don't, everybody says, oh, air condition the day, it'll be more expensive, blah, all sorts of common things. But at the end of the day, our young generation, they will pick an aircon place to a non-aircon place.
But and food court,
huh?
But
the food in food court is, you know what it's like, And so for me, it's a very practical thing, because if you aircon it, make it a bit nicer. I mean, our HDB houses, right now also BTO lah, got aircon, got all the wires are all in concealed, everything, right? Like condo already, right? How come our hawker centers still must build the same way? I never really understand it. In my vision of the hawker center of the future, right, I think that the center part of the hawker center can be a centralized refrigeration area where people can do all their preparation work, and then they can have the stores right outside. And it can be air conditioned, so that young people will say, hey, I can be a hawker. It's an aircon, I got nice facilities. This is built to order. This is my little shop. It's built to order. I pay NEA a certain price. Of course, it'll be higher, but we all need to be able to pay a little bit more in order for the younger generation want to do this kind of work.
But is that true that the younger generation really don't like the entire broad spectrum of the younger generation really don't want to?
It's not don't want to do, but it's very little. It's like your tuna is all dying out. It's sort of less people wanting to do it.
This is pretty. I was advised not to mention this. This might be a bit too controversial, but why don't we let foreigners come in? Why don't we let them bid on hawker stores?
Have you been to People's Park recently? You should go to People's Park complex, at the bottom of People's Park complex. When you walk in there, it's all the migrants who are now selling all the northern Chinese food. You see the first row of the People's Park complex, the NEA owned stores. Any of these old hawkers that give up the store, you'll be taken out by one of these. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying, yes, it is the way our society is evolving. And as a society, the new migrants always take up either hawker or taxi driver. I mean, in Singapore, we control it so that they don't get a taxi driver job. But they can sell food. And these are the very two basic things for any migrants to do. So now that our society is changing, we do see, and there are some which I welcome, like xiao long bao. I mean, xiao long bao now in hawker center. It's a good thing for me, I can go and eat xiao long bao. I like xiao long bao. But it's all of the other things that I find very, very foreign. You should go to people's park. Now imagine if all these migrants keep, they keep taking over all our hawker stores. Very soon, in 20, 30 years time, right, your hawker center, and this is the fact of the matter, the hawker center is not going to look like what it is.
But people would just vote, right? But again, I just think people would just vote with their feet. So if the guy selling his weird, I don't know, balut, let's say that there's a Filipino guy come there sells balut, which is like the unfertilized, which is like fertilized egg, right? Then people will just either not eat it, or the guy will have to evolve himself and make sambal balut. So he has to evolve to Singaporean taste.
No, our younger generations will evolve to eat the food.
So
it's like our kids are now eating sushi.
I
never eaten sushi as a kid.
So I guess it goes back to my main point about the whole point of evolution. Like if we didn't allow evolution, we wouldn't have Chinese Western food, we wouldn't have Chinese pork belly satay. And is that really that bad a thing? Is my point. It's just what I just thought maybe it's not that bad a thing. Or like xiao wan mian. When I was growing up, I ate xiao wan mian. Xiao wan mian is la mian. La mian obviously come from Malaysia. It came from China somewhere, I think. And when a migrant brought it. But why is that a bad thing? I grew up on it. To me, that's Singaporean food. I eat it every day, like at recess. So that's Singaporean food to me.
Yeah,
it's the evolution
our main concern now is to be able to eat that food that we grew up eating after I die, I don't care lah. But I want to be able to eat char kway teow when I'm 70. See, that's the problem. Because all the char kway teow men are all in the 50s and 60s and nobody wants to take over. And then you get a guy from China, put him behind the wok. He's never eaten char kway teow in his...
Precisely, I understand that. But why can't we teach him? If he doesn't like it, then you moves on. But you can't preserve a man. You can't preserve a man who's 50 years old frying his kway teow. You can't preserve that. He will die. His son takes over.
A young fella, a Singaporean who's willing to fry char kway teow will do a better job than somebody who's never eaten char kway teow until he's like 20 plus.
The guy who takes it over.
He's got no idea.
But then this guy takes it over.
Okay, I'm going to
and everyone still like it. People will go like, oh no. 以前 uncle 煮的比较好吃。
Translation, the uncle last time.
Uncle last time way better. We can't preserve taste, and we need to accept that evolution is inevitable. Which is why, like my point, documentation, put down recipes, teach your children, learn from your grandmothers how to cook, whatever she used to know how to cook. Pass it on to your kids, all the scraps of paper. That's important, because that is all we have.
There are some things that cannot be preserved by recipe books.
You can't preserve char kway teow.
Yeah, exactly.
The 50-year-old guy, he teaches 20-year-old guy. 20-year-old guy fries it, and then what happens?
No, he disciples under the 50-year-old.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Years.
Fair enough. He disciples under the 50-year-old guy, fries it with lard. Then next generation, eat aircon people, eat salad for lunch. They're gonna come, uncle, 太油了，不要吃.
Too oily, don't.
Too oily. Or uncle, why your cockles so raw? But that's how I learned from my 50-year-old 师傅. He has to evolve. He has to go. Okay, I have to fry my cockles less oil. I must put less oil. I must use sunflower oil. I must put a sign there saying less lard, less salt, no MSG. He has to evolve.
But
at the end of the day, and when I'm 70, I will still have char kway teow. It might not be as tasty as how I remember it, I'll still have char kway teow.
I'd rather have my tasty char kway teow when I'm 70. That's what I'm trying to preserve.
I'm trapped in the middle, so I have to I just put this up as a exact quote from one of the uncle. And one of our questions to him was, so uncle, you've been a hawker for all your life, so share with us what is a good characteristic. What is one characteristic a good hawker must have? Okay, this is for all of us to think about. I mean, I feel that there's a lot of wisdom in his words. He said, a good hawker must be stubborn. You cannot change. You cannot change. You make fishball like that, means you make like that. Factory come and tell you, 5 cents I sell you my fishball. Stubborn, no. Think about that. Okay, and I really respect him. At his age, he can still stand up and say, we are like that. this is our character.
Yeah.
If you don't have this, you cannot be a good hawker. And you think about it. I think there's a lot of wisdom.
And we need to get the Gen Y guys to think the same way. So this Hokkien Mee guy in Serangoon, 20 over year old guy, I admire him. He said, I fry Hokkien Mee the way my master teach me. And that's how I'm going to do it. 6 plates, 1 wok, that's it. I'm not going to change anything else. There's going to be still the pork belly there and stuff. And so this guy will actually, I'm happy because he's 20, I'm 40. So the probability that I'll die before him is quite high. You know? So at least when I'm 70, he'll be like 50 years old. And by that time, he'll be solid already, right? But he's quite good now. So we need, my thing is, you see, the Japanese are like that. You know? When they do something, they say, okay, this is it. This way I want to do it, There'll be one segment of them that will keep the culture alive. The traditional way of doing things, like our Kueh Tutu, our friend there, Kueh Tutu, his great-great-great-grandfather was the one who invented Kueh Tutu in Singapore, 1920s. And he's practicing, and he's one of these stubborn guys who has this machine that still pounds the rice to make the Kueh Tutu.
Samuel Crescent.
See, we need guys like him to continue that culture, you see, because there's only 1 or 2 left. And so the young people need to look at him and go, wow, okay, this is something that I want to preserve. And I can imagine a shop house with a brand new machine, still pounding rice right in front, showing people, okay, this is tradition, artisanal way of making Kueh Tutu. And we all must tell ourselves, if this is the traditional way, I will be willing to pay for it. Then he can survive. Or else if everybody's still complaining, Kueh Tutu, wow, so expensive, how come? Why? Then I tell him, show your machine right in front. Don't put it behind, hide for people.
I was wondering what the machine was, because I had to ask the auntie, I was like, hey, what's the machine?
Yeah, but there's a muaci guy, the very last man who makes muaci by hand. People complain, $2 for your muaci. And as a young person with some business mind, I know, okay, this is going to disappear in a few years' time. So if I know how to do it and it disappears, I'm the only 1 or 2 left, people will pay me. And I can recognize the potential of making lots of money from being able to still make fish balls, still make Kueh Tutu the original way. Market them, give them the heritage label, give them the money that is enough for their kids to go to preschool, nursery, so that they can own their condo, have their car, and have the swimming pool. Seriously, that is the Singapore dream. Everybody wants to do that. If you don't pay the hawker enough for him to do that, why you want to be a hawker? So we cannot be double-minded and welcome all the. I welcome the Japanese and the French and all the Italian. We can't be double-minded and say, wow, pasta, $20. Wow, so nice. You eat 1 piece of sushi, Otoro sushi, $25. He just cut it, put it on rice, right? You eat it, $20 we are willing to pay. Then our own food, we say, why so expensive? This one $3, $4.50. How are we going to survive?
Okay, on that note, I'm going to open this discussion.
At the same time, we still have our hawkers who are not affected by it. So we have everything. It's long and short of it. You can find all the global trends, you can find them here. So we do enjoy a wide spectrum of food. Not like this, not the same when I was growing up. When I was growing up, there wasn't even KFC. I was that old. There wasn't even McDonald's. I remember the very first McDonald's that came to town. I remember when KFC opened. I remember going to Malaysia saying, hey, how come they got KFC? We don't have. Those were the 70s, But nowadays, any trend around the world that is trendy, we have it here in Singapore. But at the same time, we still have our hawker uncle and aunties who remain very much untouched, so that $2 chicken rice is still available when you can pay $30 to eat one mouthful of sushi rice, right? So that's the situation in Singapore.
Any other questions?